we have the possibility of civil society not talking only to themselves, but the government, but sitting down with the government and sitting down with the private sector to reach an agreement on how to get the best out of the forest sector. We have the misfortune also that we have good laws in Africa. Almost all the countries, forest-rich countries in Africa, have very good laws, but the implementation is always weak. We need to do something seriously about that. So I will now go down to, because of lack of time, go down quickly to the EU, the VPA. This is what the VPA says, and I think all of us knows about it. It is actually an agreement between the European Union and all the producer countries, not only in Africa, but all over the world. If you are a tropical forest producer country, mostly, that's their major interest. They want to have an agreement with you and actually be able to buy timber if you can prove that you have it from legal source. And they have also, within the countries, I think Chen referred to this one, between their own member states, put in place their own procurement policies that support this kind of a thing. And again, they are also put in place the regulation, their own regulation, timber regulation that also supports the VPA. That is, any timber that comes in from producer countries will have to show the certificates. The VPA can only be implemented through a legality assurance system. And I will go quickly through the processes used in getting into the legality assurance system. This involved the establishment of a license scheme, which has to be given at the national level, through a licensing authority, which can be government, but then it shows that the product is traceable. You can be able to say where the tree or even if it comes in as a stool or a table, you should be able to prove the source, where the tree was cut, the company that it passed through, and how it was transported and able to get, and before it gets to any port in the European Union. What does the legality assurance system entail? It entails making sure that at the national level, you actually define what legal timber means to you. What exactly does legal timber means to you? You have that definition that is based on the principles, criteria, and other things. Let me just go instead of these are the context of the EU action plan and what the VPA meant. In Africa, we have a number of countries already who have signed on to the VPA, and those 5, I hope I'm correct because I'm not sure whether another country has joined, but then those 5 are the 5 countries who have signed on the far right: Cameroon, Central African Republic, Ghana, Liberia, and Republic of Congo. Ghana, where I'm based, is actually the first country to sign the VPA in the world. Not only in Africa, they are the first country to sign the VPA in the world. And this was because IUCN had a project around that time which was supporting multi-stakeholder processes. And that the IUCN being not only civil society group, but also with, as a union, involved the government, and the civil society was able to bring the stakeholders together, and that was why it was quicker in Ghana to get it signed. And the effect also went through the neighboring country of Liberia, and also to Cameroon and the Republic of Congo. So these are the 5 countries that have in Africa that have signed the VPA with the European Union. The other 2, Democratic Republic of Congo and Gabon, are negotiating the VPA, and definitely they will soon be able to sign the VPA. What do we expect when we sign the VPA? First of all, I said that to me, VPA is not voluntary because immediately you sign, it's mandatory for you to implement it as a country. Because you have signed to that agreement, then you have to. Like I said, immediately you sign, even during the negotiation process, that is when you start defining what timber means to you. You have to agree, not only by the government, but all the stakeholder groups, what exactly does timber mean through your definition of legal timber in the forest and in your mill operations. You have to look at the supply chain control at all the critical control points so that you do not mix one timber from one side of the forest to the other. You have to make sure that ensure that verification is very clear and credible, and there are sufficient control of timber when in trade. So how far have we gone in the African region? All the 5 countries that I mentioned have defined, they have defined their forests. So everybody knows what legal timber means in their forest. And it's basically made up of principles, criteria, and several indicators. For example, in Ghana, there were 7 principles and about 13 criteria, but a lot of indicators. The other thing that followed is making sure you look back at the policies and legislation and ensure that they fit into what you say you want to do. So they look at again at their policies. Some of the countries like Cameroon, Ghana, Liberia are now in the process of reacting their new policies to support VPA implementation, and they are getting there. Ghana is in this process of putting in place the chain of custody, which outlines the regulators and private operators, for example, the sawmillers, the owners of the sawmills. And this, before I forget this point, this is one of the issues that the issues we have problem with in the African region. There are a number of logging companies that have started following the processes of forest certification, FSC certification, who are now in the higher style of doing this, and then they are being brought back to now talk about legality. They are saying, you want to bring us together with those who are starting, whereas we are more advanced. So there are a lot of issues there. Some of the countries in the African region have started their wood tracking systems with the help of the logging companies, and Chen referred to the need for documentation, the need for record keeping. This is really the key, because that is what they will use when any auditor comes to either your forest or your mill. They will ask for documentation that confirms that you are actually abiding with the expectations. The wood tracking system is being piloted in most of the countries. For example, Liberia is working with SGS to pilot their wood tracking system. Ghana has also gone further in testing their wood tracking system. The VPA require new institutional arrangements. There has to be an internal body that is responsible for this animal we call VPA. So in Ghana, they have set up a timber validation department within the Forestry Commission that serves as the internal audit. Liberia is in the process of setting something like that in place for the Forest Development Authority. Central African Republic is also doing the same thing. What are the lessons we have learned from following this? The VPA has actually brought in something that it shows some kind of ownership. It has brought ownership to the process of government not only seeing themselves as the one responsible for the forest sector, but bringing on board other stakeholders. Like I said, the agreement is binding. It's not voluntary, as it said. You have to, immediately you sign on, you have to do it. It keeps us on track to know that we need to think about the capacity of the relevant institutions that are responsible for this, to know what we want to get about it. The negotiation process has shown that it is not talking about forest alone. There are a lot of other things involved when you want to talk about legality, and some of it needed also from some personnel from outside the forest sector. Then it also showed us that we need the legislation to the legislative bodies like the parliament to support these initiatives that we call the VP. The legality assurance system requires a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of expertise, and it's going to be computerized. Before, the way we trace our logs that goes in from the forest to the mill are paper-based. Now everything has to be computerized. So we're trying to work on making that happen. The government and the private sector operators' readiness for legality assurance system is the major issue. Everybody needs to be very ready. The industry players are very sensitive to this because they see it as an extra cost to them. And it's a business case for the industry. So I would like to just end up with this last slide and say we have got some potential gains when it comes to the issue of VPA in Africa. We have seen that because some of it has been computerized, it shows that we can get easy access to field data at a central point. It has reduced transaction time and cost. We can easily reconcile data at successful points. Then it's showing that we can improve our forest management system, and then we can ensure that we get our revenue back. Those are the potential gains that we have to see. But then there are a lot of challenges. There are some gains also. Africa, as you know, is not that technologically advanced as some of the other regions or continents. So we have problems of internet connectivity. So even if everything is done, we need to carry our GPS around, and then we are under the forest canopy trying to find them. There are some technical difficulties that we are running into. Thank you very much. I would like to stop there.
Real good overview of the progress and a hard-headed analysis of some of the challenges. We are now going to move on finally to Megan Dickey from Environmental Investigation Agency, who's going to tell us some about the Forest Legality Alliance. And I will confess that this is the Forest Legality Alliance is a consortium of the Environmental Investigation Agency, where Megan works, and the World Resources Institute, and is funded in part by USAID. I worked at USAID from 2005 to 2009 and had some hand in getting this going. And I worked at the World Resources Institute for 12 years. We were getting the forest program going there. Began some very initial work with EIA back doing forest investigations in Indonesia and other places back in 1999 and other places. So I'm very happy with this program, and we work at the State Department very closely with the Forest Legality Alliance. And so, just for that little commercial, take it away, Megan.
You're stealing my presentation. So as was just shared, my name is Megan Dickey. I'm from the Environmental Investigation Agency, but I'm here today on behalf of the Forest Legality Alliance. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the LACY Act and sort of what's happening on the ground and how the FLA is a part of that. All right, so here's just a brief roadmap, a little bit of LACY Act overview. I know we've done that, so I'll just blaze through it. Implementation, so talking about Forest Legality Alliance, what we do and how we help with implementation. The effectiveness of the LACY Act and past shortcomings and criticisms, so what's been complained about regarding it, and very important recent developments. So share. Sorry. All right, so as we have discussed, the LACY Act is a very fact-based, demand-side approach to regulating the forest industry. It is very interesting because it does require a declaration requirement to import products from outside the country, which is sort of the first roadblock to getting illegally source products into the country. It trumps any, or the legality trumps any sort of procedural or documentation requirement that it may have. So although there's a declaration form, it is not, doesn't get you off the hook if you have it, and you do still import illegally sourced goods. And it's applicable at all tiers, which is perhaps one of the most important aspects, is that it doesn't matter where in the line supply chain there's a source of illegality, you are responsible. Okay. So just the two main requirements that sort of trigger Lacey Act compliance are an underlying violation of state, foreign, or tribal law that manages or protects plant or derivative plant products, and it has to be traded in the U.S. So as I noted at the bottom, it's also just about regulating trade, not logging itself. And that brings me to more of the implementation side and the role that our alliance plays in that effort. So just some basic background. The Forest Legality Alliance is, as Chip said, sort of a collaboration between the World Resources Institute, EIA, and USAID. You can read in the items on the left. We help share information with both our members and people outside of the organization or the alliance to provide some more insight into what the policies are that they have to comply with and where those resources are available, to sort of build a coalition of interested parties to share information and talk about problems they're facing and express concerns. We also do a lot of outreach, so this event would be one example of what we do. Also working with Reforestamos, we help put on that event in Mexico, so those are some of the things we do. We have developed some tools to help people in the industry sort of begin to understand better where they can, what places pose most risk. So we have this thing called the risk tool. And unfortunately, I don't have sides of websites up here, but if you access our website, you can find these two tools. The risk tool, which gives country by country sort of analysis of what the risk is for importers and if it's dangerous for them to import wood from this country, and what sorts of things they need to consider, the laws that could potentially trigger the Lacey Act. And we've tried to provide those and make them accessible to people so the supposed burden of the Lacey Act is reduced and not as obvious as people seem to say it is. At the same time, we also have a resource for the declaration tool, or that's what we call it. But so businesses importing can learn how to fill out the proper documentation, so at the time of import and customs, they know what they need to show in order to successfully import their goods. We have a broad membership base, so we do involve both private and public groups and organizations, NGOs. We have groups on the right represent sort of our main industry advisory group, who are very active and supportive of the Lacey Act and want to work with us to help spread the word about its importance and function. And then to move on to the second form of implementation of my presentation, the effectiveness of the Lacey Act has been very significant. And for those of you who don't know, we've seen, since its implementation, we've seen significant reductions in illegal logging worldwide. For example, it's about 25% worldwide, and then 50 to 70% reductions in select countries, which is significant, and in a short period of time, so since 2008. At the same time, we've also seen reductions in other illicit activities that are often associated with illegal logging, so human trafficking, drug trafficking as well. And because of a reduced strain of illegal logging on forest timber species, we also see a reduced rate of biodiversity loss. So you have less pressures on select species of trees. But at the same time, despite its successes, the Lacey Act has produced some shortcomings and criticisms. So there have only been 2 legal actions and not even prosecutions based on violations of the Lacey Act. And one, you may have heard of Gibson Guitars, and the other was a specific case related to some hardwoods from Peru. But this has recently changed, so I'll get to that. People often say it's too burdensome, and that's where the FLA comes in. We try and help make it easier, providing information online and make it accessible to the broader public. so they can understand that the Lacey Act is there to help us and that it's not as burdensome as it may seem. And so the Gibson Guitars case, I don't know how many people in the room know or have heard about this. There's pretty fair. Most people know? Okay, good. Well, then I won't spend too much time on the history, maybe just a sentence, but Gibson Guitars has faced two raids from the U.S. government based on illegally importing various timbers, so Indian rosewood and ebony. And this has been highly controversial because it's sort of been sitting as a lame duck, if you will, for a period of time without action being taken. So as a result, the Lacey Act has been criticized because you have this situation just sort of sitting there pending. And but recently, we had a development in this case, and on August 6th, we had a decision released that Gibson Guitars reached a criminal enforcement agreement with the U.S. government, which details various allegations that the U.S. government had against them, but that were never prosecuted. And it resulted in over $600,000 worth of penalties, including the forfeiture of confiscated Madagascar wood. And the Department of Justice agreed not to prosecute. In the decision, Gibson accepts and acknowledges the responsibility for their actions, and